What do you get when a few Jersey guys, bonded over friendship, golf, and the California surf culture, decide that the golf glove industry needs a serious shakeup? You get Palm Golf Company, and co-founder Joe Ciafardoni joins me to tell the raw, behind-the-scenes story. From bootstrapping and Kickstarter wins to risky bets during COVID, Joe gets real about co-founder dynamics, cash flow chaos, wholesale heartbreak, and what it really takes to leave the safety net and go all in. This isn't your typical founder story. It's got grit, grind, and the guts it takes to build a brand worth talking about. Now let's go. Welcome to Legacy Unscripted, sponsored by Progeny Coaching. This is the podcast where sports and business collide. I'm your host, Russ Katzman, and here we'll skip the fluff and get straight to the hustle. From athletes turned entrepreneurs to impact-driven business leaders, we'll dive into the wins, the lessons, and yes, those failures that make our legacies worth living. Today, I'm happy to welcome Joe Ciafardoni, co-founder and co-owner of Palm Golf Company. Joe, thanks for jumping on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Russ. Really appreciate it.
So, I find it interesting about your situation. You've got 3 co-owners. Talk to us about those dynamics. It's got to be something to deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I would say the company was founded. We're friends first, so yes, it does come with some interesting dynamics at times. The thing that worked out for us early on for Palm was that we sort of all had our niche or our most impactful areas in which we focused for the business. So at times it was we were almost unilateral on what we focused on, and then like the owners of those areas of the business, and then we would collaborate. We were collaborating on a weekly basis to just make sure the goals of the company were also aligned, and that everything we were working on individually lined up with those goals that we established. So
Yeah.
It did it did cause friction at times, because we all are equal owners, equal founders of the business. And so dealing with that dynamic at times was not turbulent, but we almost sort of had to all accept taking a step backwards at times, and then trusting that the other person was going to be doing what's best for Palm first and foremost, and then also aligned with what they were focusing on anyway.
Now, were you all friends first, or did you know each other from a business standpoint first and then become friends?
Yeah, all friends first. So oddly enough,
Okay.
we're all from New Jersey, and born and raised there, but we didn't know each other until we moved to California, and we came out here at various times. Dustin and myself, our wives were working together at a company called Surfline, which is what brought me and my wife out here. They became fast friends, and then it was, hey, you have to meet Dustin, and you have to meet Joe. And then the easiest thing for the friendship was just start golfing once a week, and that's sort of the genesis of everything.
Terrific. And so why did you start the company to begin with then? What was it that you saw in the marketplace that you were missing?
Yeah, so I will always give the tip of the cap to Dustin and Justin, because the product itself was their initiative and their sort of brainchild. I was always there and always hearing the conversations about it, always super supportive. Being a golfer and somebody that oddly enough didn't wear a glove, I was like, you guys are doing something awesome. This is a great idea. They looked at sort of what was happening in golf, and this is pre-COVID. 2017 was when, 2016 was when really we were starting to even do manufacturing samples. They were just like, look, there's got to be something in this space that's not getting the amount of attention that other areas are. And accessories and apparel and headwear, all those things sort of had already owners or larger companies that were doing a great job. They saw the glove as that opportunity. They thought that while there were some companies that were just doing solid colors and stuff, they thought there was a way that we could sort of bridge the high quality AAA brother leather gloves and then bring the surf influence that sort of shaped us and where we live. And they're like, let's just see if we can merge that together in a not loud but subtle, very clean aesthetic. And we did two specific prints. One was an Americana style. It basically was called our Stars and Stripes, made it seem like an American flag glove. But then the other was our Barrels and Birdies, which is a staple in our line, a print that we've carried through year after year, and launched a Kickstarter. So Kickstarter was amazing because it not just quantified were validated that like the idea was good, but it also gave us like our first round of business and then the ability
Sure.
to then drum up income to place a reorder and replenish this stuff. So Kickstarter, you know, we could have done more as far as the raise, but it was absolutely the validation and the confidence we needed. Like, look, this is something. This is scalable. This is an idea worth pursuing.
I think that's an interesting part about the whole Kickstarter, whatever, kind of accelerator type of funding plan that people go through, and quote unquote self funding, crowdfunding, however you want to phrase it, right?
Yeah,
Those type of things. I think people forget about the fact that, well, not only do you find investors doing that, but chances are you find a lot of your first customers because they're going to want to buy in something that they're invested in, right? They're going to tell
absolutely.
their friends about it. They're going to tell their friends about it. Anything they can do to start to build because now they're vested in the interests of that.
Absolutely.
And you're not just crowdsourcing your funding, you're now crowdsourcing some of your marketing and some of your early efforts relative to that as well. Um,
Absolutely.
so you mentioned COVID briefly. Talk to me about what happened during those years. That had to be crazy.
It was. And right before COVID really hit, we had just started doing our first real dip into wholesale business. We were primarily
Mm.
e-commerce, floating ourselves just by getting word of mouth through Instagram primarily.
Yep.
Um, and that led us into relationships in wholesale. So we just started working with Dick's Sporting Goods. Um, the way it was working, because they would give us sort of the roadmap of what they intended to order for the calendar year. For the sake of us and managing our cash, we bought all of that product ahead of time because it would just
Mm.
get the sharpest price to order at that volume rather than doing it piecemeal. So we bought all of the product to support the projections in which they intended to order. However, they wrote the first half of the POs and took some of the product. But then when COVID hit, they had to close doors. And they're
Yep.
just like, look, for right now, it's a pause. We're not going to be taking any of this inventory, is what it is. So that was like the first real gut punch that we really had because not only was it, okay, we're not going to now see that income. We had already shelled out the manufacturing cost. And then
Yep.
on top of that, in a rush, we sort of had to dive into a 3PL relationship because we weren't equipped to deal with fulfilling that. We were able
Mm.
to we were able to get the first couple orders out. I was able to like work my way through the vendor guides, sort of wanted to experience it firsthand. Um, and just so that I knew what I was basically giving away or how to instruct 3PL to fulfill as well.
Yep.
And once they canceled those POs, we're just like, is this actually the end of the business here? But ended up being the biggest propeller of the business because of our presence on social media, because of the entry into golf and how many people like jumped into the game. Um, we were an earlier brand out there that was doing things just, I would say, like a little bit different. So that visibility helped us sell down all of that product that we would have been selling for less margin. Um,
Mhm.
and instead, we were more liquid than we would have been had we just done it through wholesale. So that ended up being like one of the biggest negatives, then turned into one of the biggest positives for the business.
How long did you kind of sit in that negative space, collectively, the four of you? How long did you just kind of say, man, this is just a killer, that I don't know what we're going to do with this. How do we get around this? What are we going to do for money? How long did you kind of sit in that space before you started to come out the other side?
Yeah. It's funny, like it's so long ago, and I could have the time wrong, but I literally feel like it was 48 hours. 48 hours of just being like, man, life just beat us up. Like it is what it is, and but then it was kind of just like, okay, like we have the product, we have a warehouse. What's the harm? Like we just got to keep going at this point. And the other thing that was really advantageous for us is we really had no overhead. All of
Yeah.
us were still just working full-time jobs. Um, the shared office space that we had to house product was sort of the real only overhead that we consistently had to carry, and it wasn't a crazy cost for what we had. So really, it was just kind of like, okay, it is what it is. Like we're on to solutions now, like sort of business as usual. 48 hours later, we sort of were just like, okay, like let's just get to work. And I want to say we sold through that product. It took approximately 6 months.
Mm.
And prior to that velocity of sale of product, it would have been it would have looked more like a year and a half it would have taken us to sell that amount. But because there was so much activity in the golf space, it like,
Right.
um, yeah, the sun sort of like came piercing through sooner than we were thinking. So
Well, and it's interesting because I talked to a lot of golf courses as they came through COVID. And it's interesting because they didn't, all of a sudden, the sun came through for them as well, right? And it was, everything was sunny for a period of time. And I talked to a few after COVID and what some of those long lasting effects of it were.
yeah.
And, I talked to a guy who, they put 2.5 years worth of wear on brand new golf carts in one summer. Why?
Mm,
Because we all had to have our own carts. And everybody was out there. They had such a higher demand than they normally would have in summer. This is summer in Florida, right? Normally people are gone during that time period. No, they stay, and now they're putting all this wear and tear on brand new golf carts. And so some of those kind of effects were surprising to them, and kind of the downside of that boom that they had. Did you experience any downside to your son coming up and having that temporary boom for yourself?
outside of the relationship pause with Dick's Sporting Goods, I don't remember anything that was like super adverse that came directly from COVID. I would
Mm,
say the only other thing I could think of would just be the PGA shows were canceled.
yeah,
And sort of that sort of put a little bit of like a ripple in our ability to prospect potential new wholesale partners.
yeah,
Um, if I'm being honest, like I didn't know what to expect for how long COVID would be impactful and like what real timeline was going to look like. But to not be able to engage more wholesalers during that period and physically show them like what we do, it is a hard sell at times for us to say we are a very high quality product without you actually being able to interact with it in person. Um, so I'd say like that's a minor pitfall. But really it actually was such a like a gasoline on the fire for us. It allowed us to get more cash in. We then started to do our first real paid media budget.
mm,
So we were already pretty well immersed in e-commerce marketing, but it was through social, and it just allowed us to be like, okay, like what other ways can we sort of go omni and also get visibility to Palm right now and capitalize on this. So yeah.
yeah. No, that's great. So interesting, Joe. You brought up a little bit earlier that when you guys started Palm, you still had your individual jobs and were still working full time. So I work with a lot of clients that come through that transition. They have that runway, they leave the runway, but they have to make that leap, right? I always tell them that your boat will come in, it just doesn't come all the way to the shore,
Yeah.
right? You have to swim out and meet it. Talk to me about some of those conversations between maybe you and your loved ones, between you and your co-owners of, okay, it's time. How did you know it, and what was that thought process like for you?
Yeah. I feel like we all knew it just because of the demand that was coming with Palm. Both of my business partners, just for some context, we're all the like very close in age. We're all 36 or 37 years old. But the only thing that was different was that I was already working remotely. And then I was also like, I would have to travel a bit here and there for work. But in most cases, I was able to actually sit in the warehouse and sort of like sporadically throughout the day get stuff done that needed to get done.
Yep.
Um, it was 6 years into the business. None of us were working full time yet. And I was just like, look, I personally am okay with the risk of just understanding that I might not be able to guarantee pay, right? Like, if no one else is comfortable with that, I understand. But like, I'm asking you guys if you're okay with me just going into this business full time now, and hopefully being impactful. There was a couple different areas where we saw opportunity. I was operating sort of as a pseudo independent rep for our backyard and like showing up to courses for a portion of my day. I was
Yep.
also sort of overseeing everything operationally for the business, as well as financial and administrative. Dustin and Justin are absolutely imperative to the creative, the marketing, and the product development side. And after we discussed that, it was just like, look, like it makes sense. Like you're like the doer, go do. Like so, we just knew one of us needed to sort of just take that leap and be available to the business for as much time as possible. There was no real right answer as far as do we have enough money to do this? It was sort of just like, are we ever going to just put the chips on the table? Yes or no? I'm ready to. If you guys support that, then I'm going to do it. And that's sort of just how we got to that point.
Well, I think that's when it really it starts to become real, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because it was one thing, yeah, you do it on the job, but I had safety net all along, right? And I was good all along because we our bills were getting paid, and this was something we did on the side. Now all of a sudden there is no safety net. It's
Yeah.
this thing survives, or you guys are on the streets trying to figure out how you're going to get some food this week. So um, it's a tough transition to go through, but it's an important one, and it's an important inflection in the business. Since that time, and it's been a couple of years now that you're all full time.
No. So Dustin is a teacher by trade.
Okay,
But what's nice is that he still has his summers.
as a
His
summership.
his hours have flexibility where like he does make himself very valuable to the business. Justin was in Palm full time for just over a year. And last year we had to do some heavy OpEx restructure. We were operating negatively for a couple months, and we were just trying to extend the runway. And we're just like, look, like this can't stay. We need to sort of revisit every single expense. And like the first thing that has to go away would be any guaranteed pay to ownership. He has two kids, and he had to do what was right for his family, and
Sure.
we discussed it heavily. And he's back to not full time. Our goal is to revisit that and within the next 18 months get everybody back full time.
No, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
So you open the can. Let's talk about the OpEx issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the decisions that led you down the road, or poor decisions, or just incorrect ones at that time that kind of got you down the road of putting too much money into OpEx?
Yeah, there is a few. So to jump back to wholesale, which isn't really OpEx, but we did make a very heavy investment into apparel in 2021.
Mm,
We were seeing growth in our partnerships and our relationships in wholesale, and we're like, we have to, like apparel is that next step. Like if we can start getting wholesale pumping with apparel, then we're going to be in a great spot. Like what happened though was we didn't we didn't do the thing we were doing well was we were getting that validation first, and we were getting the security that like yes there will be buy-in to these product types. With apparel we just took the leap and thought that we would be able to sell it.
gotcha.
We also got jammed with a couple like very high minimums, and the price wasn't as sharp as it should have been. There was just a little bit of a lack of education in apparel. So that would I would mark that as like one larger mistake. The other would be is that we were constantly falling in love with different opportunities in like our tech stack. Um, we stood up like an entire infrastructure that supported taking in wholesale business, uh,
Hmm.
being able to get green grass business orders going. Um, we were spending very heavily on a marketing agency, and as well as a paid media agency. So a lot of it was just tied up in what were worthy things to spend money on, but we just went too hard too fast, and we just had to sort of rein that back in. Um, it was positive because we learned so much about what we valued on having those luxuries or having those available to us, and it
Yeah.
allowed us to just be like, okay, now let's take a step back. Like, what was working? What could we pull down and still do here internally, but just be able to sort of cut into what the cost is. So we were able to get a consultant that helps us with sort of doing exactly what the agency was for putting together our email campaigns and looking forward. And then the same
Right.
thing for paid media. We just got a good consultant that we drove down costs over 80% in the span of 10 months.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh, I think that happens quite a bit. And to your point, I mean, as we went through COVID, we didn't know how long it was going to last,
Mhm.
right? So that bump might not have been a speed bump. It might have been a steady incline for a period of time. We just didn't know, right? As far as the demand and the interest in golf and all of that, and it was there for a summer, for a year, and then gone by the time we got to the next season, or at least coming down by the time we got to next season.
Right.
Um, but we can't make our decisions assuming that things are only temporary. We have to make our decisions based on current knowledge. I had an individual in one of my networking groups use the analogy of being an entrepreneur is like driving at night or in the dark, to where you can see about as far as your headlights will show you,
Yep.
and that's it,
Yep.
right? And so we make decisions based on what we see in front of us. Sometimes those are good. Sometimes it turns out to be not so good. But you won't know until you've driven past it and you can look back.
Absolutely.
Um, you guys, you made the decisions you had to. You looked at OpEx, you made some changes now, and pulled yourselves back, and you'll be fine in getting where you need to go. Um,
Absolutely.
where do you need to go? What's next? Where are you guys headed with the company? What are you trying to do over the next couple years? Where do you see yourselves?
Yeah. So first and foremost would be going through our first actual outside raise. So even with Kickstarter, to go back to that, those were strictly just essentially like the purchase of product, like early adopters, and we didn't have to actually seed away any equity during that. So it was structured a little bit different.
Right?
We have had, we've been fortunate that our other two partners of the business both made investments. And one operates as sort of a line of credit to give us buying power of
Nice.
inventory, and the other was strictly just an investment. And then he's our chief strategy officer. So after he made his investment, we then said, okay, like it's time to ramp this thing up. We need to get bodies in the building. We need to sort of, after going through the OpEx restructure, it really opened the visibility to be like, this company can operate positively. And now we have what's a scalable business as opposed to what we were doing the prior couple months. So now we want to establish payroll. We've laid out some key hires that we need to make over the next 6 months. We also have some equipment laid out that we intend to spend on. We want to sort of take wholesale to a more point of sale approach as well. We want to be able to show up and do event-based point of sale, continue to scale our wholesale relationships, and just it's going to be a lot more of the same, but just scaling it and doing more of it. So we've identified what our best sellers are. We've learned what spaces we don't need to waste time, effort, energy, or money in. Took time, effort, and money to find those things out, but we clearly have like sort of the path forward and what our rinse and repeat needs to be. And the next 5 years, our goal would be to scale it up. We would love to be able to fold it into a larger entity, and just sort of bolster resources and see if it's something that we're appetizing for purchase. The best case scenario would be that along that way we just find out we actually don't need to do that. We can do it all on our own, and just continue to push.
Nice. I like it. So the one thing I tell people or talk through with people all the time when they start looking for outside money is certainly the equity piece. What are you giving up? How are you going to do it? How are you going to structure it? But the other part is how you present that to the investors.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, what's my plan, right? If I'm asking for, I don't know what your numbers are, but if I'm asking for 100 grand, how am I going to use that, right?
Right.
Paying salaries, paying people, paying operational expenses is typically not what an investor wants to do, because if you can't take care of those with your current cash flow, then just adding more fuel to the fire isn't going to help you. What they want to do is, how are you going to strategically plan for the future with an infusion of cash?
Right.
And then instead of taking that and having that happen over 3 years, the infusion of cash allows it to happen over 18 months.
Exactly.
Right? Which is, it's an interesting story to tell when you can start talk to that. But I think it's an important consideration before you even have those investor conversations as to how you guys are going to use that and what you're going to do with it. All right, spectacular. Talk to me about your journey as an entrepreneur. What are some of the key lessons you've picked up in the last handful of years since you've been here? How did things change for you when you went full time versus what you were before? Just give me some of those key lessons that you've picked up along the way that you just didn't foresee going into it.
Well, I would say the first and foremost would be like, I really don't know anything. And then what I really, really love about Palm is that one, it's our company, so it's our baby, and it's easy to love. It doesn't feel like work doing
Yeah.
this. It feels like it's like I just love being here. But it really has been eye-opening to the relationships that we've built and the amount of things that we've probably all have learned along the way is just invaluable. And there's so many people that are experts at so many areas. And it really does open my eyes. Like I have so much to learn and so much opportunity to learn. So I'd say that was like a very big one. Like
Yeah.
um, admittedly, when the company started, we, me personally, I'm like, oh, we're hot stuff. Like we got it all figured out. Like things were coming easy, relationships were coming easy, wholesale business was coming easy because we were new and we were excited.
Yeah.
Now that that has an expiration, right? And like now it's like, oh no, this doesn't just come easy. You have to go get it still. Like you've done nothing in the grand scheme. We did something amazing by building a brand, but there's always going to be work to do, and you can't get complacent in that. So I would say that was a big one. The other like major thing for me is less about the business and it's more personal, which is just like find balance or you will burn
Mm.
out. And I've done that several times where like I've just you feel like it's like an endless buffet where like I will fill the plate up and eat myself to death. And like you really can't do that because you're gonna ultimately it's gonna hurt the business if you're not available for it. If you're wearing yourself down thin, if you have no work life balance, like that will actually be a detriment to the business. There's no reason to like go 100% for 24/7. It's ultimately not going to work out for you. Um, and the third would just be like really appreciating family and friends um, because they were a lifeline early. They were the loudest in the room, supportive of Dustin, Justin, and myself, saying like, "Go do it, go do it." And then not only were they supportive in that way, then they also supported by actually buying into it and continuing to be the biggest advocates and telling their friends and their family. And so like you get so hung up on like just trying to get through the business on a regular basis and it wouldn't exist. Like you even referenced earlier about becoming full time.
Yep.
My wife is our graphic designer. She makes $0, but she spends her time like doing emails for us or putting together banners or ads. My sister-in-law does our customer service again for nothing in return, but because they all just believe in the business. Um, Dustin's wife helps out. Justin's wife has helped out. We've had invaluable support and the appreciation for that stuff. Like I can't speak highly enough, and I really force myself to just say thank you way more often because I don't think they realize how impactful that is.
It's an important consideration. I mean, I think, um, we move as we build companies, we kind of move past those original internal early adopters,
Yeah.
those people that were important to getting us this far because we start to hire people in for those positions or sometimes we don't. And we tend to show appreciation for those that we're paying to be here. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we forget about those that are giving up their time and their efforts and their support without that. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I just want to add one more thing
Yeah.
too. The other would be that I'm the type of person that I really like to get my hands involved in everything and just see and experience it for myself. Learning how to like trust who's next to you and to
Mm,
delegate and to teach is so imperative. It was very difficult for me before. We have one other full time employee who is absolutely instrumental to the operation, but trusting him when he says, "I can do more. I want to learn more," and then being intentional with making sure that happens. Because one thing I really am a firm believer in is like we have an opportunity here where if it's 5 employees, 10 employees, whatever, it's I want everybody to be an entrepreneur with us, right? And I want to feel like I'm bringing value to everyone and building everyone up because in a click this could be over. And what I would
sure.
love more is that when if they had to leave, then they're going to the workforce with more experience and then they're invaluable to somebody else. So that was another thing that like just learning how to delegate and not feeling like you got to do everything.
And that is an important consideration, especially for early entrepreneurs, because we start out in that scramble stage in the beginning where we are doing it all. You look at the org chart and we're in every single one of those boxes, and figuring out how to strategically pull our name out and put somebody else's name next to that and be able to be comfortable handing that stuff off is important for you. So, um, last couple questions for you. One, what's holding you back today? What are the challenges that keep you up at night right now?
Um, the big one right now would be we like we operate so tight on cash, constantly. Um, I would say I the next that keeps me up would just be I feel like we have a lot of opportunity despite the not having a ton of bodies here right now. I still feel like we have a lot of opportunity to tighten up how we operate and sort of leverage any of the resources that we do pay for. Um,
Hmm.
and so I'm like a firm believer in sort of like trying to create a universal language here in Palm. And what I mean by that is if we have a project management system, then I just want to make sure we are all leveraging it to its max capacity, right? And like we're all speaking the same language in there. That the process is the same for everybody. I also obviously want it to be something that works for everyone, right? Like I don't want to just put structure in place or be like put this here and just make busy work. But
Right.
what's very tough for us is that we do at times only have these pockets of opportunity where we can all collaborate together, and the rest is in organized messages on Slack and or emails. And I just want it to be the case that we can sort of maximize who we do have and make sure that it's like sustainable and buildable and scalable, so that when the next person comes in, it all works together and there's that synergy. Um, so cash, just staying organized and ahead of like our email calendar or in our production calendar. Um, and then inventory management, I would say, is like the number one most difficult thing to deal with. And with the amount of variance we have across our SKUs, it is incredibly difficult to stay on top of it and just make sure like our cash is going to the right areas and focusing on the right product and buying the stuff that's actually making up 80 to 90% of our revenue. Um,
Yeah.
it's just a difficult thing to master. I don't know that anybody does. The more I talk to folks that are from companies much larger than ours, they're like, that's everybody's problem. Nobody gets it 100% right. You got to expect the imperfection's going to be there and then just continue to refine it.
Well, again, it's based on what we know now, what's out in front of us. You're purchasing based on what you know or what you think you know, and there might be a fork in the road, something ahead that you just can't see right now that pops up on you. So I can
Absolutely.
see how that's an issue for you. Yeah, and those are pretty typical, right? You're in that beginning stage, which I often call the scramble, which is it's survival, right? It's get us past, it's get us to the point where we can breathe, where we
Mhm.
don't have to worry about payroll every couple of weeks, where we don't have to worry about do we have enough cash to sustain it. Then it's that next part which you mentioned, which is structure, right? Once you get to the point where you can breathe a little bit, you take a breath and now you move into structure. Okay, how do I take what works and systemize it so I don't have to worry about it anymore? And then more and more the company starts working on automatic,
Mhm.
or at least repeatable processes,
Exactly.
automatic or not. And then you start to see slight improvements once you create a standardized process. Now you can start to improve it. Once you start to improve it, you can start to narrow it in, and it becomes more efficient, it becomes more effective, you start to spend less on it. And it's as an organization you start to see those margins increase a little bit, just because you're running a more standardized ship. And so I like that. I think you're on the right track to take care of all of those in time. You just got to have the patience to be able to stick to it.
Absolutely.
Um, I
Yeah.
don't want to get off without you having a chance to kind of promote just a little bit. Tell me, where do we find Palm Golf, and where are you guys? How can we find the gloves? Give us a little spiel.
So our primary point of sale is just our website, which is palmgolfco.com. We're also carried in a few select worldwide golfs throughout the country. We're primarily in California between San Diego and LA, but we just opened a store in Miami as well. Not all of our product line is available at those stores, but our gloves and our hats, our towels are available there. Um, and then yeah, we're in a couple different golf courses throughout the country, including the East Coast, primarily here in California, and then a couple in Texas. Where am I messing? And Midwest. But yeah, our website's the best spot to find us and make sure that you can get pretty much anything from our product line. Our staple items are our headwear, which is all like primarily performance fabrics, water resistant, all that good stuff. And then our gloves are AAA Cabretta leather, which
Mm.
is the highest quality leather that you can get for a golf glove. We've been rated and peer reviewed by Golf Digest, Golf.com, My Golf Spy. We are validated as one of the better AAA Cabrera lifestyle gloves that you can get on the market right now. Actually, we were the best according to My Golf Spy this year. But yeah, appreciate any support. And then socials, everything's just Palm Golf Co.
Okay. I like it. So anything else you want to throw at us before we wrap up?
I don't really have much else. Yeah, no,
Nothing I didn't ask.
no.
All right.
The questions were great. I really appreciate you having me on here, and I love talking about the business or about business in general. So again, I just really appreciate that.
No, I appreciate that. And thank you, Joe, for coming on the podcast for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you again.
So that's a wrap for this episode of Legacy Unscripted. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't just let it sit. Take action today to build your future. Make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone who may need to hear it. And if you've got a story to share or you just want to connect, you know where to find me. Until next time, keep it real, keep it bold, and keep living your legacy.